In this lecture, you'll learn how to configure VTP, the VLAN Trunking Protocol, with a lab demo. So I've got the usual lab topology here. I've got my 3 switches, switch 1 through to switch 3. Right now, I've configured trunks between each of the switches, but that's all of the configuration that I've done. I haven't created any VLANs anywhere, and I haven't created any access ports. So let's verify that. So I'll go on to switch 1, and if I do a show running here and go down to the configuration for interface gigabit Ethernet 0/1, you can see that I've configured it as a trunk port, and the only VLAN that is configured right now is VLAN 199 for the native VLAN. So if I do a show VLAN brief, you can see that the sales and the eng VLANs have not been created yet. So I created the native VLAN so that I could do my trunk configuration. So that's how it's configured on switch 1. It's the same on switch 2 and switch 3. And if I do a show VTP status on here, I haven't changed this, so this is going to be at the default, where the VLAN domain name is currently null, there isn't one, and the VTP mode is server. That's the same on all of the switches. What I want to do in this lab, if we have a look at the topology again, I'm going to configure switch 1 as a VTP server, switch 2 will be VTP transparent, and switch 3 will be VTP Client. So I'll configure the VLANs on the server. The VTP transparent switch 2 should pass that information on to the client, and the VLAN should show up there. I'm also going to need to configure the VLANs on switch 2 because it's in transparent mode. So let's go from right to left. I'll configure the VTP Client first. So I'll go on to switch 3. I'll just do a show VLAN brief on here so you can see there's no VLANs there yet. And a show VTP status, and it's the default of no domain name, and it is currently a server. So on here, I will say VTP domain. Let's make it FLACKBOX. And I need to go to global configuration before I can do that. So VTP domain FLACKBOX and VTP mode client. So I get a confirmation message that it's changed it to FLACKBOX and it's changed it to client mode. I'll do a do show VTP status, and I should see that it's changed. So there is the domain name and it's client mode. So that is switch 3 configured. Next, I will do switch 2. So on switch 2, I don't want it to participate in the VTP domain. If I do a show VTP status, it's also at the default settings. Actually, what's happened here on switch 2 is that it has picked up the domain name from the other switch, which is FLACKBOX, and it's still a server, which is the default. So I'll go to global configuration here, and I will say VTP mode transparent. So it's going to be independent for its VLAN configuration now. And I do show VTP status just to verify that it did take that, and yes, it is now transparent. The last one to do is switch 1, and on switch 1, let's do a show VTP status again, and I see that it's picked up the domain name as well of FLACKBOX. So I'll go to global config, and if I do a VTP domain FLACKBOX in here, it's going to tell me that the domain name was already set to that. And I'll say VTP mode server, and it's going to tell me it was already a server. Okay, so that is VTP set up. All I need to do now is actually configure my VLANs. So again, I'll do a do show VLAN brief. I don't have any VLANs configured yet apart from the native VLAN for my trunks. So on the server, I'll say VLAN 10, name eng, and VLAN 20, name sales. And if I now look in the VLAN database here, if I show VLAN brief, I can see that those VLANs have been created. If I go over onto switch 3 now, it didn't have any VLANs previously. I just scrolled up there, you can see that the engine, the sales VLANs weren't there before. But if I do a show VLAN brief now, I can see that it has learned about the eng and the sales VLANs from the server. If I go on to switch 2 and I do a show VLAN brief on here, the VLANs aren't showing up on there, the new ones, because it's transparent. It doesn't synchronize its database. Okay, next thing to do is to test everything is working. So I will configure the switch ports. To save me typing this in, I've put it into a text file. So let me bring that up. So on switch 1, interfaces fast 0, 1 and 2 are in the eng VLAN 10, and port 3 is in the sales VLAN. So let me copy this and then paste it in on switch 1, and I've also got a config ready for switch 3 where fast 0/1 and 2 are in the sales VLAN and fast 03 is in the eng VLAN. So I'll copy that and paste that into switch 3, paste that in. Let's have a look at the topology diagram. So there you see the eng PCs. I've configured their access ports now on switch 1 and on switch 3 as well for eng 3, and I've also configured my access ports for sales as well. So now if I go on to the eng1 PC and I'll try to ping 10.10.10.12, which is eng3, which is on the other far end switch. And when I try this, it's going to fail. And the reason for that is, if I go back onto the switches again, you'll see on switch 3, if I do a show VLAN brief, I've got the eng and the sales VLANs, and I've also put my clients into the correct access VLAN. So that was on switch 3, and the same thing on switch 1. Show VLAN brief, it knows about the VLANs and the clients are put into the correct VLAN. The problem is, if I have a look at switch 2, if I can find it in here, when I do a show VLAN brief in here, it doesn't know about sales and the eng VLANs because this is VTP transparent. So looking at the topology diagram again, it comes in from switch 1 to switch 2 tagged with a .1Q tag of the eng VLAN, but switch 2 doesn't know about the VLAN. So that's why the traffic is failing right now. So I need to go on to switch 2, and in global configuration, because it's transparent, I need to add my VLANs here as well. So I'll say VLAN 10 name eng and VLAN 20 name sales. If I now go back onto my engineering PC, try the ping again, it will probably fail for a little while. I need to give this a second to come up. So let's just watch the request time out, and it might take a few pings. I might even have to do the ping again before it's going to actually come up and allow the traffic through. Okay, there we go. So the last one succeeded, and if I do the ping again, I'll see they're all going to work now. So I've now got end-to-end connectivity between my eng PCs. Let's check that sales is working as well. This should also be good. So I'm on sales 1. I will ping sales 3. So sales 1 is on switch 3. Sales 3 is on switch 1 on the other side. It's at 10.10.20.12, and this works just fine too. So I've got end-to-end connectivity between my PCs in the same VLANs, but if I go on a sales PC and I try to ping an engineering PC, this is going to fail because it's in a different IP subnet. And if we have a look at our topology diagram, I don't have a router yet. So we need to configure inter-VLAN routing to allow that to work. That's what we're going to do in the next lecture. Thanks for watching. If you want to get hands-on practice with Cisco networks for free, then you can download my 400-page CCNA Lab Guide, which you can see above my head right now. Also, check out the video about my CCNA course. It's the highest rated course online. Thanks.